sounds that make you feel a part of the play, and everything in between. Our goal is to make you feel like you're inside Bryant Denny or Jordan Hare. Follow along on our social media at Next Round Live on Instagram, X, and Facebook. Also, check out thebarnauburn.com and covercrimson.com while you're at it. Here's to Fall Saturdays.
This hour of The Next Round is presented by the Birmingham Racecourse Casino, now featuring 7 days of giveaways with your chance to win a share of up to $125,000. The more you visit the Birmingham Racecourse Casino, the more chances you have to win.
From the creators of The Next Round comes two new sites, covercrimson.com and thebarnauburn.com. Two team sites with the same excitement and information-driven content that you get every day on The Next Round. Live daily shows, recorded shows, free of charge, plus premium content with insider information starting at just $1. And it's the perfect gift for the Alabama or Auburn fan in your family. Covercrimson.com or thebarnauburn.com. Sign up today.
Our friends at Milo's Hamburger invites you to join them in the fight against hunger in our local communities by bringing non-perishable food items to your local Milo's, including canned goods. When you donate a canned good or any non-perishable food item, Milo's will give you a free drink. Together, we can make a difference.
Follow Next Round Live on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. The social media team at Next Round Live is dedicated to giving you daily news conferences and practice video from UAB, Alabama, Auburn, and around college football. Follow and compare to the sites you used to visit. You'll also get the latest highlights and news from the Next Round Daily Show. Turn on the notifications so you don't miss a thing. Next Round Live on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. See more at nextroundlive.com.
By now, you guys know how I feel about my fashion. However, did you know that I care about your fashion choices? Cargo shorts are out, flip-flops are only appropriate on the boat, and please throw away that stained t-shirt from college. You may be thinking, EG, that's all I own. What do I do? Here's what you do. Go to nextround.store and fill your cart with a wardrobe that is approved by me. Stock up on logo t-shirts, hoodies for football season, and hats for every day of the week. Trust me on this one and head over to nextround.store to get stocked up for this season.
All right, time for another Middle Eight. As we've got a weekend of college football in the rear view, he is Brandon Marcello of CBS Sports and 24/7 Sports. I'm Ryan Brown. Show is presented by mybookie.ag. Code NEXTROUND to get that double deposit. You make your deposit, they double it with code NEXTROUND at mybookie.ag. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere. Mybookie.ag, code NEXTROUND. What is up, Brandon? How are you today?
Doing well. Doing very well.
It was a pretty entertaining weekend. I mean, we've been spoiled the last couple, but there was some entertainment this weekend.
Yeah, I was actually thinking two of the more entertaining games this weekend, or this past week, I should say, since we get football Tuesday through Saturday now. We're actually on our network, CBS Sports Network, and I'm not sure a lot of people got to watch them. Was Liberty Kennesaw State?
Wow.
Kennesaw State winless, beating unbeaten Liberty, and then UNLV Boise State on Friday night was a lot of fun as well, with Ashton Genty being held to like a season low, but still Boise State pulling it out. Yeah, it's just a weird weekend. Every team in the AP Top 25 that faced an unranked team won this week. That makes 2 weeks in a row we haven't had an unranked team beat a top 25 team. So we're kind of in a rut here. Not a lot of real big upsets happening, and we seem to be due a little bit. This upcoming week, I'll say, a lot of amazing ACC matchups. There's like 3 or 4 matchups in the ACC. They're going to tell a lot about the championship race there, but also it's going to shake up their rankings quite a bit among the top 25 teams they have.
Including Pitt SMU, the game you didn't know would have any meaning at the start of the year. It's got an exceptional amount of meaning in that conference. So ultimately, you could say college football playoff meaning as well. I mean, conference champions in the playoff.
Yeah, I was talking to Rhett Lashley actually last night, the head coach at SMU, for a story, and he's still beside himself how they beat Duke.
6 turnovers.
6 turnovers. They lost the turnover battle 6-0 and still won that game in overtime. Duke didn't score a single point off those 6 turnovers.
It's impossible.
And and they missed an extra point, and SMU had to block a field goal for Duke to win it in regulation just to force overtime. Well, one of the weirdest games you'll ever see. SMU, based on our CBS Sports research, only the second team in the last 20 years to win a game when losing the turnover battle by 6 or more.
I mean, it's hard to lose the turnover battle by 6 or more. I can't believe CBS research had to dig too deep in that many games. I mean,
I'll tell you
6.
what, there's a lot of games, to be quite honest. I was looking through it that have had 6 turnovers or more where you've lost the battle by that much. It's incredible. Listen, you know how they say turnovers are contagious?
Yeah.
They really are in games. If you get down, I mean, heck, hey, Pitt, the team SMU is going to face this week.
Yep.
Look at them. They had 3 pick sixes in the first half.
That's almost
Things
impossible.
just rolled, man.
Yeah, that's almost impossible. All right, let's talk about the biggest game in the country. It was Saturday night in College Station, Texas. For one half, I'm like, dang, this LSU team, they have rounded into shape since that USC loss. They might be right there with Georgia and Texas. Heck, they might be better than Texas. It might be them and Georgia, the 2 best teams of the SEC. But that was only the first half. Second half, I'm thinking the same thing about Texas A&M.
Yeah, it was nuts, wasn't it? Watching LSU in that first half, I just kept going, they got the speed advantage, they got the matchup advantage, they've got the better quarterback out there, they've got the better skill players, they got the better receivers. Seems like they're starting to not dominate, but starting to make a tempo there with the offensive line. And the second half starts, it's like Garrett Nussmeier just forgot how to play quarterback. And then, of course, Texas A&M finally wakes up to their own senses and goes, oh, yeah, we should probably put Marcel Reed in at quarterback, and which is something I think even the most casual of fans have been calling for since week 3 when they went to Florida. Remember Connor Wigman was injured at the time, so they brought in Marcel Reed, and the offense just looked different. It had a spark, and yet they brought Connor back to start when he got healthy. But it's very clear this is Marcel Reed's team. First 3 possessions in the second half when he came off the bench, they scored touchdowns, all rushing touchdowns, and they just took over the game. LSU had won 104 straight games when leading by 10 points or more at halftime and ended up losing it by 12. Just shows you how dominant and how different A&M was when Marcel Reed was on the field. And then also, I think the thing that obviously has been discussed a little bit but really disappointed me from LSU was Garrett Nussmeier and how he responded on the road. This is a guy that everybody's been clamoring for as one of the top quarterbacks in the country and in the upcoming NFL draft. Looked anything but in the second half. Looked like he was seeing ghosts out there.
Yeah, a bunch of interceptions for him, several interceptions, maybe not a bunch, but at least 3 for him in the second half there. I want to go back to Marcel Reed because the weird thing about that is it's like LSU was shocked that he was in the game. I mean, this is a guy that started 3 games. Granted, it was because of Wegman injuries, but he's also come in when Wegman has been ineffective. I mean, this could not have been a surprise that you see Marcel Reed at some point in the game, yet it appeared LSU was completely unprepared for that and even struggled to adjust for it in real time.
It's fascinating also that the players said so after the game, that we were not prepared for that.
It's amazing.
What were the coaches doing all week, or for that matter, all season? You knew Marcel Reed's played in games, and they might bring him in just for a change of pace at the very least. That's disappointing to hear, that you're not prepared for that, or even the idea that might happen. So what can we do? Also, LSU has faced some running quarterbacks here in the past. Heck, the week prior, they just faced one in Arkansas and handled him very well in a big-time win in Fayetteville. So, yeah, that's a little disappointing, especially, I mean, we always bring money into it, but Blake Baker's the highest-paid assistant coach in the country, apparently. He's your new defensive coordinator. You stole him away from Mizzou. You're not prepared for the quarterback that's also on the roster that's already started 3 games and at the very least might get a series or 2. I don't know if that was just coach speak from the players, but the players usually aren't going to lie about preparation when it just comes to, we just didn't practice that all week. Insane.
LSU was extremely one-dimensional, and that was another thing that hurt them. Now, they threw for 405 yards, which is really hard to do when you have got 0 run game. They had 0 run game, 22 carries, 35 yards, just 1.6 yards per carry. They did rush for a touchdown, but this is an extremely one-dimensional team, which that's concerning on the other side. I mean, if you run up against a good pass defense, LSU is in some serious trouble.
Yeah, certainly. And it's crazy because the week before they had just finally kind of established their run game with Durham, and we're starting to get things going against Arkansas, and then to see it pop up like that against A&M.
Yeah.
And A&M, of course, has a really great defense, especially on the defensive line. We all knew that all season. Yeah, LSU very much it's kind of going back, not necessarily the last season, but I would say so a little bit. It's just they wanted to be more of a balanced offense this year, and it's just not really. And it's not going to be against good defensive lines. And watch out. They have to go to South Carolina, I believe.
Tough spot. Yep, tough spot.
And that's a very tough spot, go on the road against a very good South Carolina defensive line. This could be something that like kind of rolls downhill for LSU potentially if they just continue not being able to run the ball. And obviously with Alabama coming up, that's a very big concern. So LSU's got some issues. Just like over the last couple of weeks, you just kind of thought LSU was kind of sneaking in the background a little bit. Maybe they are a playoff type team, and then they just take a half step back. It just seems like it's been like that under Brian Kelly since he's been there.
Well, as you mentioned, A&M goes to South Carolina. We'll talk about that in a second. But the LSU Alabama game now is what it was.
Yeah, sure. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
A&M going to South Carolina. Why am I thinking LSU?
They've almost lost there already this year. LSU
right. That's right. Yeah. And Nussmeier had to bail them out.
Yeah, I don't think they would want to go back. Alabama, LSU in a couple of weeks. So we got a couple of weeks to talk about it, but it is now what it has been for the better part of the last 15 years, a national championship elimination game. It's just kind of different the way it looks. Used to it was a one-loss team or two undefeated teams in a national championship eliminator. It's going to be a couple of two-loss teams, but that's what that's going to be. We got a couple weeks to talk about it, but it is fun to see that game on the horizon.
Yeah, certainly. It's funny. Like a lot of people have been trying to say, well, this was an elimination game or this previous one. They got two losses already eliminated based off the schedule. And a lot of that's based off people just guessing on maybe a loss on the horizon. But yes, this will actually be a playoff elimination game for two teams that are in the hunt. Whoever loses that game, in my opinion, just no way they're going to get into the playoff. And I can't wait for it. Obviously, the advantage goes to LSU with it being in Death Valley. But again, Bama makes them one-dimensional. Anybody can beat LSU at this point.
The road ahead for Texas A&M. We mentioned it at South Carolina. That is a night game, ABC. That is a tricky spot for them, as you mentioned, with South Carolina's defensive front. They host New Mexico State in a tweener game between that and Auburn, which they play on the road. Auburn, who just found a win at Kentucky. Maybe they're rounding into shape. We'll see. But everybody's now looking at that Thanksgiving weekend game, rivalry weekend game against Texas, and when you got Texas and Texas A&M back together, you wanted it to have some meaning. Well, A&M's taken care of their part of that so far. I mean, we need to tap the brakes on looking too far ahead, but right now Texas A&M looks like a fascinating game on Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah, potentially for a spot in the SEC championship game, obviously a playoff implication game, maybe even just a playoff seeding implication game, depending on where the wins and losses are for Texas and A&M going into that. Either way, it's going to be a huge game, just even for the playoff, not to mention just the rivalry aspect of it and them facing each other for the first time in nearly a dozen years. Incredible atmosphere, and I'm sure I'm sure the Texas folks are pissed off at the schedule makers for setting that game up, being in College Station. But hey, that's the way it works, baby. Welcome to the SEC.
Welcome to the SEC. We're not going to give you anything there. They got the more favorable schedule over Oklahoma, but you got to give somewhere if you're Texas. It is the middle eight. He's Brandon Marcello of CBS Sports at 24/7 Sports. The show is presented by MyBookie.ag. Code next round when you log on to MyBookie.ag. Get that sign-on bonus. Double your initial deposit right there at MyBookie.ag. You make that deposit to play. You double it right away. Free money you can play with. Win with it right away at MyBookie.ag. Code next round. That is MyBookie.ag. Code next round. Monday Night Football tonight with the Jets and Steelers, and then games all week in college football. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie.ag. Code next round. Speaking of Texas, they were the latest team to go on the road to Vanderbilt to see if Vanderbilt is actually for real or if this is all fake. I think we can say now this is for real. Texas led the game. They were never out of control of the game, but they were also never able to put Vandy away, Brandon. Vandy just hung around, and then eventually the game comes down to an onside kick. I mean, it's weird to say this, but good win by Texas going to Nashville and pulling one out.
Yeah, Vanderbilt just won't go away against anybody, really. And, yeah, it's a solid win. I like the way Texas responded when Vanderbilt went up, right? And after that pick by Quinn Ewers, not to say they could have just kind of started letting things get away from them. Quinn Ewers went on a tear there, completing how many passes in a row did he complete at one point? He almost broke the school record. I know we were talking about it in our work chat in that game. But I thought it was a great response there in the first half by Quinn Ewers and that offense. You just knew, though, that Diego Pavie was going to find a way to let them at least have an opportunity in the second half, and they got that. But I was really impressed by Quinn Ewers, mostly from this game. That's my big takeaway from this. I almost said big road environment in Nashville.
Well, I mean, it is. Nick Saban said it. He got, caught a lot of crap for it. But there were more Texas fans there than Vandy fans. That's the way it is at any Vandy home game.
It's the biggest Airbnb in the SEC. But yeah, I mean, you're still on the road. But that's what I was impressed about with Texas is the way Quinn Ewers, he's still getting back from that injury, responding the way they did in that spot, because that game could have went south for them there in the fourth quarter. So that's my takeaway. You got to win. Quinn Ewers looked good in doing so, responded well to adversity, and you're back on track.
Yeah, they get a bye, Texas does, and then they get Florida coming off the cocktail party. We'll see what happens to Florida, who looks like they're an improved team as they take on Georgia this week. More on that game in a little bit, but that's who Texas gets next. Penn State went to Wisconsin, and there were a lot of people, myself included, that thought this is a bad spot for Penn State here. They got Ohio State on the horizon. It would be easy to look ahead to that. If you had told me before the game that they also lose their starting quarterback in this game, I would have thought even worse spot. Credit James Franklin and Penn State, though, for going in a tough road environment and winning by 15, having to play your backup quarterback for a large portion of the game.
Yeah, and that they were really sparked there by that pick six by the defense, and I think that gave the backup quarterback a little bit more confidence to go back there, play a little bit more loose, and he did a fantastic job. I'm trying to look up his stats here.
I got him 11 of 13, 98 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, consistent, didn't put them in bad positions, and it was fantastic, and the run game really kind of won them the game there late. And that's what you want from Penn State, right? The offense, when you look at it, isn't necessarily like going to blow you away as far as what they're doing. But schematically, they do little things that are a little bit different flavor with the new offensive coordinator, Andel Kononecki, that has really kind of sparked them this year. Really impressed by them. One of the more impressive teams this weekend, considering the spot, considering your starting quarterback is injured. The other problem is like your starting quarterback gets injured right at the end of the first half, and then you go in the locker room, and if you're the backup quarterback, you're sitting there being told, yeah, you're the starter now, and you're sitting in this room, and then all of a sudden you're going to walk back out on the field and you're the guy. That's a crazy place to kind of to think about. You're there for about 15 minutes in a room being told, get ready, you're the guy, and then you got to go do it. But yeah, impressive response by them. Sets up a gigantic game, obviously, against Ohio State this week. And Drew Aller, like, what's his status going to be? It looked kind of serious at times, especially with the way he was reacting on the sideline after the injury. And you hate to hear that. But interesting spot here for Penn State, because the big storyline, obviously, under James Franklin this entire time is like you just can't win the big one. He's 0-4 against Michigan and Ohio State the last 3 regular seasons. That program going into this week has only won 1 game since 2000 against a top 5 opponent. And if they're going to win the Big Ten, this is kind of their year to do it. They're kind of set up for it because of the schedule, because of the talent level they've got there. And it's just, it's incredibly difficult as any program. You're saying, all right, now get over the hump. But the hump is beat one of the best teams in the country and keep winning. It's kind of hard to do.
It is hard to do. I mean, these are the games, the Wisconsin game, that James Franklin dominates. He doesn't lose these games.
Right.
It's Saturday's game, the big noon kick, that he loses against Ohio State. That said, boy, you want to talk about a team that was on the struggle bus Saturday on offense. That was the Ohio State Buckeyes. They had fits against Nebraska. Nebraska's offense just could not ever get over the hump, though. They were given chance after chance after chance by a very ineffective Ohio State offense. A game the Buckeyes win 21-17. They were 25-point favorites in this game and had to fight for the win. And part of that is because Nebraska would not let them run the ball. Just 64 yards, Brandon, on 31 carries. That is not Chip Kelly football. It's not Ohio State football. They limited Henderson and Judkins very, very well.
Yeah, I was shocked by that. You just kind of knew Ohio State was going to pull it out, even though they were trailing in the fourth quarter. But I was shocked at just how ineffective they were running the ball against that Nebraska defensive front. They've got some big dudes in that Nebraska defensive line, especially in the middle, but I was not expecting Ohio State not to be able to kind of carve them up a little bit more as the game went along. And this is a game that Nebraska just should have plain out won. They got stopped at the goal line. Dylan Raiola made some mistakes there even later in the fourth quarter. Nebraska not only had their opportunities to win this game, they should have won the game with the way it was set up. And again, it's just Nebraska is just snake bitten. They can't win one possession games for whatever damn reason.
It's the craziest thing. And
it's been like that for years.
Yeah, it's been multiple coaches. It's not just a Scott Frost problem or a Mike Riley problem or it's been every single coach, a Matt Rule problem. It's been every single coach that has coached there for the last this feels like this has been going on for like 15 years for them now.
Well, it kind of has been.
Maybe that's the reason it feels that way, yeah.
I mean, it's crazy to kind of look at some of these games here. It's just Nebraska is so much better than it was 2 years ago, obviously. It's even better than it was last year. This obviously looks like a bowl team, but it's almost like they're just chancing fate with the remaining schedule. I think they got UCLA this week, if I'm not mistaken. And it's just kind of like, man, and UCLA's playing a little bit better. Like, if you get another tight battle and you got that in the back of your head and you end up losing that game, this will end up being a disappointing year that looks so promising to start the year. I mean, the way the schedule's set up for them was to be 6-1 or 7-0 going into this game against Ohio State, with so much more on the line potentially. And instead, Indiana's been resurgent and been awesome. Nebraska just can't close games. I think they had multiple opportunities in this game to win it, and they couldn't convert any of them.
Ohio State, and the odds makers know James Franklin's history in these types of games. They are a 4-point road favorite in Happy Valley for the Big Noon Kick on Saturday. I mean, at some point you've got to there's no rule that says this will happen, but at some point you got to think Franklin wins one of these games, right? I mean, just the pure numbers of the ones he coaches in, he's got to win one at some point.
Right?
I mean, that you would say the odds would say that he does, but I mean, time again, he loses them.
Yeah. Maybe he's just, I saw him after the game apologizing for the way he was handling a press conference earlier in the week about, the way he was handling some things about former players just walking off, and he's apologizing. I wonder if he's just trying to put as many good vibes into the universe as he can going into this week. Like, help me out here because I'm snake bitten with this. But yeah, I mean, I'd be interested to see how that fan base reacts if Penn State loses this game this week. I just want to know. I wish I was going to that game. I'm not, but I would just want to be sitting in the stands and listening to the fans.
Just the murmur.
Would be like,
yeah, just
for the murmur. Because at that point, it's just like, you've been here for a decade. We're not doing it. It's like, are you the guy? I mean, they've been asking that for the last 2-3 years anyway. And after that, yes, Ohio State's maybe the most talented roster in the country. I mean, that's one thing. But Ohio State's human. We've seen them already lose to Oregon. Should have lost to Nebraska. This is gut check time for Ohio State as well. But for Penn State, it's just if you're James Franklin, you better win. It's a home game, and it's an Ohio State team that does not look as good as they did 3 weeks ago. And for that matter, maybe we should have seen this coming from Ohio State based off some of the other results, whether it was from Marshall, some early struggles against them earlier in the year, early in that game. I think Ohio State's starting to show us a little bit of who they really are. And my big issue with Ohio State, and maybe this is why Nebraska was so successful in slowing the run, is that I don't think you have to respect Will Howard at quarterback all that well. And that's led to some things there that have been problematic for Ohio State. Also, another great storyline going this game, Will Howard wanted to go to Penn State, and they wouldn't take him.
Oh.
He even said in a press conference after the game, they didn't want me. And he said I wasn't good enough for them. He says, well, I guess we'll find out Saturday. So a lot in the mix here for this game.
Fighting words. The good news, though, for those murmuring Penn State fans, if this starts going the wrong way, after Ohio State, their next month of football is Washington, at Purdue, at Minnesota, and Maryland. In this new world, you lose this Ohio State game, probably knocks you out of the Big Ten championship. That would almost lock up Oregon and Ohio State, it would seem, playing for the Big Ten championship. But you're just fine in the college football playoff picture if you're Penn State, win or lose in this game. So it doesn't quite have the stakes on it once did. I know they still want to win the game very, very badly because, as we've mentioned multiple times, types of games they haven't won in the Franklin era. But that said, not only are you in the playoffs, you're probably looking at a home game in the playoffs with just one loss.
Yeah, and listen, in Penn State, I forgot what the stat was. Like, they would have made the playoff more often than not if it was 12 teams throughout the James Franklin era. But again, it is just more of the same. You know, you're not winning the Big Ten. You're not beating the opponents that are in the top 2 or 3 of the Big Ten. You're always just about number 3 or number 4 every year in your own conference. But you can contextualize that in a different sense by making the playoff and making some noise and maybe counting on another team to knock off an Ohio State for you so you don't have to deal with them down the road. So this provides an opportunity, even with a loss again to Ohio State for James Franklin, to make this season look even better just because maybe you don't have to face Ohio State again in the playoff.
All right, he is Brandon Marcello, CBS Sports, 24/7 Sports. This is the Middle Eight. It's brought to you each week by MyBookie.ag, code NEXTROUND. MyBookie.ag, code NEXTROUND. Monday Night Football tonight. Steelers a 6-point home favorite as they take on the New York Giants. You can play that game right there at MyBookie.ag. The World Series is also back underway with Game 3 tonight in the Bronx. Yankees taking on the Dodgers. You can play that one there. College football starting back tomorrow. All those games at mybookie.ag, code NEXTROUND. When you log in and create your account, you can make your initial deposit. They will double that deposit with code NEXTROUND at mybookie.ag, mybookie.ag, code NEXTROUND. Also, Rhoback.com. They've got that team-specific gear for a lot of your favorite teams out there. But if you want even more than that, they've got great golf polos. They've got the amazing hoodies, the quarter zips, all of that. Gift-giving season is right around the corner, and Rhoback can be your spot for that as well. We're going to help you save TNR20, code TNR20. Saves 20% off your initial order at Rhoback.com. That's Rhoback.com, code TNR20. You know, I went ahead and just put Ohio State and Oregon in the Big Ten championship game. Don't forget Coach Sig. Coach Sig stayed lit over the weekend. We'll talk about that game. Alabama back in the win column as they beat down Missouri. Auburn finds a win. Notre Dame over Navy. We got a lot more to get to. Also, Brandon unveils his top 12 and his power rankings. All of that in the next half hour. It is the Middle Eight presented by MyBookie.ag.
Call the next round now at 205-734-0923.
There's only one Champy's world-famous fried chicken. Poor boy's tenders, full fried chicken plates, and a little bit of the Mississippi Delta with chicken on a stick and hot tamales. On your way to or from the big game on Highway 119 in Alabaster, stop by Champy's Chicken.
In some places, football is a sport. In Alabama, it's a fine art. New Life Art is proud to announce Daniel A. Moore's upcoming painting, Deuces Wild. This season, Bama is blessed with a pair of very talented deuces. The pair played a huge role on both sides of the ball in the Tide's amazing 41-34 victory over number 2 Georgia. Deuces Wild will portray the unbelievable game-winning 75-yard touchdown catch by deuce number 1, Ryan Williams, late in the fourth quarter. The Dogs' last chance drive was stopped by deuce number 2, Xavier Brown, as he made the game-saving interception in the end zone, which will be celebrated by a small artist's remark in the bottom margin of each print. Go to danielmooreart.com to see the artist's preliminary sketch and take advantage of special pre-publication pricing for Deuces Wild. Also available, The Legend, Daniel Moore's final tribute to Coach Nick Saban. Order now at danielmooreart.com.
Storm season is here. Make sure you have a plan of action in place right now. Greg from Pell City and Storm Restoration Roofing should be your first call when storms hit. Insurance companies love working with Storm Restoration Roofing because of Greg Nelson's name and reputation in the industry. When storms hit, call Greg Nelson. He's local, 205-542-3531. He's the home of the free no-cost roof inspection. Greg from Pell City on Facebook, 205-542-3531. It's Storm Restoration Roofing.
Just because you've quit going to the gym, it doesn't mean that you have to quit gym altogether. Dunaway, that is. With our Next Round podcasts open 24/7, 365, you can access gym anytime you'd like. While you may have done away with your treadmill routine, our version of Dunaway is standing by ready to get you back to your absolute best. Find all that lovely Jimmy D-led content on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and in the podcast section of nextroundlive.com. This message is sponsored by Jimmy Crypto Inc. and Jimmy Crypto for President.
From the creators of The Next Round comes two new sites, covercrimson.com and thebarnauburn.com. Two team sites with the same excitement and information-driven content that you get every day on The Next Round. Live daily shows, recorded shows, free of charge, plus premium content with insider information starting at just $1. And it's the perfect gift for the Alabama or Auburn fan in your family. Covercrimson.com or thebarnauburn.com. Sign up today.
What's up, everybody? This is Mayor Woodfin, the mayor of the city of Birmingham. The McDonald's Magic City Classic, presented by Coca-Cola, returns to Legion Field October 26th. Watch the parade fill the streets of Birmingham. Turn up at the Coors Light tailgate party, enjoy the bands at halftime, and of course, bring that magic into the stadium. The best seats are selling fast. Tickets start at just $25. You don't want to miss it. Get your tickets now at magiccityclassic.com.
This hour of The Next Round is presented by the Birmingham Racecourse Casino, now featuring 7 days of giveaways with your chance to win a share of up to $125,000. The more you visit the Birmingham Racecourse Casino, the more chances you have to win.
Stop by the New York Butcher Shop and pick up the finest in certified Angus prime beef steaks and burgers, premium pork chops, ribs, and all-natural chicken cut to order just for you. Their chef-prepared entrees and side dishes are the perfect dinner-to-go choice for your family and are ready to heat at home. With a great selection of fine wines and desserts, the New York Butcher Shop is your one-stop dinner shop. 2 locations to serve you, Cahaba Heights and on Highway 119 in Greystone. The New York Butcher Shop, rare quality, well-done service.
Hang out with The Next Round on the go. Whether you're driving to work, running errands, sitting on the beach, or you just need a break from the real world, we can keep you company. Check out The Next Round, Mystery Fifth Hour, and our other shows on your favorite podcast app. We'll meet you there.
Ryan Brown here for The Next Round. Join me and CBS sports analyst Brandon Marcello for the Middle 8 each Monday at 8 a.m. as we look back at the weekend of college football from the SEC to the top 25 of the college football playoff. It's the Middle 8 presented by mybookie.ag, code NEXTROUND. All right, we continue on the Middle 8. He's Brandon Marcello of CBS Sports and 24/7 Sports' his top 12 from his power ranking coming up in about 20 minutes from right now. We got a lot more games to get to, though. The show presented by mybookie.ag, code NEXTROUND when you sign on at mybookie.ag to double that initial deposit. Look, Alabama had been hearing it. They had lost 2 of 3 coming off that Tennessee loss. It was a game where Alabama had something to prove, it felt, Brandon, and Missouri was on the receiving end of that. They came in already hobbled without their top running back and a quarterback that was playing basically on one good leg and started hurting his hand. And, boy, it just snowballed on Eli Drinkwitz in Missouri pretty quick. 34-0. Alabama found a way to run the ball much more effectively. Their defense pitched a shutout. Those are 2 things Alabama fans have been wanting to see for quite a while.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right, Mizzou was hobbled coming into this, and then Brady Cook getting pulled because of the injury to his hand. This was, I think going into it, I even wrote it last week, was a get-right game for Alabama. They were going to win this game. I saw the spread. It was like 13.5 and open. I said, Alabama's going to cover that. They're going to blow them out. We already saw how Mizzou responded on the road earlier this year with a healthy quarterback and receivers at Texas A&M. Alabama in the same vicinity as A&M, though I think A&M's playing a little bit more consistent at this point. But Alabama, I think, is more explosive potentially offensively, which maybe makes them actually a better team than A&M, even at this point right now. But, Mizzou has just been faking it until they make it all season, even when they were healthy. A team that was bordering on the top 10 to start the year. I think all of us were sitting there going, Michigan and Missouri were the two teams that just were fakers from the start, and both have proven so. Mizzou is only averaging 15 points a game in the SEC. They're averaging more than 40 points per game in their non-conference. They are very much pretenders at this point, and I think they lost a lot, more so than they wanted to admit, at running back last year to this year, and I think that's affected them greatly and made them a little bit easier to prepare for all these other defenses.
Conventional wisdom has always been a power conference 2-loss team has a good shot of making the playoffs. I don't know why it's conventional wisdom. We've never even had a playoffs to base this on, but that has always been the conventional wisdom. Missouri's got no shot, though. I don't care if they win out. They've got 2 losses where they have been absolutely run out of the stadium. So, I guess everything could fall apart around them and get them in. But if we're going to use that 2-loss power conference conventional wisdom, it is not going to apply to Missouri.
No. You've scored a combined 3 points in your 2 SEC road losses.
Yeah.
It's dreadful. Absolutely dreadful. No. They are not going to be a playoff team even with 2 losses. If they were to somehow rectify all this, but they're not going to. They are who they are. And the math always works out. What you see, your eyes don't lie, Brownie. You know that.
Yes.
And they're going to lose another game or two. Absolutely.
Yeah, they are. It's just this is I don't know. It's a team that it just hasn't all fit together. You're right. They miss Cody Schrader. Luther Burden.
Yes.
Luther Burden's just not ever as involved as you would want him to be. They've had injuries.
And he's not as involved as he wants to be, too.
Yeah.
Which I think is a problem, too.
That's right. Yeah. That has been a weird marriage there, that Luther Burden, Missouri thing. It has just – maybe he'll go on and be a great NFL player. He certainly has the ability to do that. But that'll be one of those that one day in the NFL you might look back and say, well, what did he do at Missouri? And then you look and you're like, boy, how did he only do that at Missouri?
Yes, you're exactly right. I think that there's some weird friction there.
Yeah.
You even saw it in the A&M game with him kind of pouting a little bit on the sideline. There were some issues even last year when his first year there, wanting to play more than he actually was. And, it's not all good at Mizzou.
It is not. Let's talk about the Alabama side of that. So the Crimson Tide comes out. I found this interesting. When Missouri got down on the goal line and it was 4th and goal, Alabama put their starters back in. They wanted that shutout. And I love, if a guy comes in and gets hurt, you always question it, right? But I love that attitude. Like, hey, listen, I know, look, maybe they will say they haven't heard the criticism, but you think they've got to have heard the criticism. And this was a chance to get a home shutout in a conference game, top 25, even if it's a fraudulent top 25 team. That meant something to them.
Yeah, a shutout's still a shutout. I don't care who the opponent is, especially if it's an SEC opponent. It's still a very good thing to do. And you've seen other teams do this in the past. I've seen it against also ran programs like lower-level FBS programs or even FCS teams where they put the starters back in to get a shutout late in the game if they're in danger. So, kudos to Alabama for doing that. They should have done that. You need to do that. That's something you can build on going forward, especially with LSU coming up here in a couple of weeks where you're probably going to need a couple of big stands in the red zone to knock them off in the Bayou coming up. So I loved it. And it's a good confidence builder also for Kane Womack. I think he's been catching a lot of hell this season, a lot of hell from fans.
No doubt.
And I think he needed that. And I think it's a big thing that the players responded the way. You saw them when they stopped them. The goal line stand, they were fired up. Kane Womack was beside himself. The players coming together with him, that's a big thing. I love seeing that.
The other big news for Alabama coming out of this in terms of what Alabama fans have been grinding their teeth over is 37 carries, 271 yards, 7.3 a carry. There was not a single rusher over 80 yards, so it was spread out. This was the running attack that Alabama fans thought they would have behind that offensive line this year.
Yeah, and it's good to get that going. Again, this was a get-right game
in
a lot of ways. If there was something you needed to work on, which was a lot of things for Bama, if you can work them out in this game, that can kind of go downhill for you and start rolling a little bit and gain some momentum. I know here lately we've been dogging the idea of momentum in sports, but it's real, especially when you're talking about week to week, about the mentality of players and getting them to believe in something and getting their attention. That is so important these days, and maintaining their attention week to week. And this game I thought was a huge, great coaching job by Kalen DeBoer and staff to rebound the way they did after everything that's happened the last few weeks, to shut out a team in the SEC, a top 25 Mizzou team, and then build that confidence going into LSU here in a couple of weeks. I think if Alabama's a team that ends up making the playoff, they're going to be one that we're talking about maybe making a run, and we'll be able to circle a couple of games here and there as to why. This will be one of them, because this comes at an inflection point of the season for them.
The number one team in the nation was at home against Illinois, a conference foe. And there were a lot of people, yourself included, myself included, who thought that this would be a tricky spot with Illinois coming to town. Don't know if I thought Illinois would win the game. Boy, I thought Brett Bielema's style could make it a tough battle for Oregon. Boy, were we wrong.
Big time.
That was a beatdown by the Ducks.
Big time. I was telling everybody last Monday, jump on that line. Illinois going to cover.
Yeah.
And by the way, I went 11-4 against the spread this week. So before anybody jumps on my ass and goes, Brandon, you don't know what you're talking about. It's 11-4 against the spread. This was one of my losses. I just thought Illinois would be able to control the tempo on a few possessions to make it close. And boy, they did not. Oregon dictated the tempo. Oregon was able to play fast when they wanted to. They were able to slow it down when they wanted to. And when you have a passing game like theirs, where it is so conservative when you look at the numbers, nothing is thrown 6.5 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. It's the lowest average in the FBS. But the difference here for Oregon is that their receivers block like nobody else in the country. Their scheme is like nobody else in the country. And when they throw those short passes to the wide side of the field, they've always got big-time running lanes. And they had that against Illinois. I was disappointed that Illinois' cornerbacks weren't able to get off those blocks a little bit easier. I'm disappointed that their linebackers weren't able to chase the ball carrier and get shorter gains for Oregon. But again, Oregon's done this to everybody this season, including Ohio State's elite defense, where they just pick up these chunk plays, and then 2 or 3 times a game, they'll go over the top. Dylan Gabriel only threw, I think, 3 passes beyond the yard markers in the first half, and one of them was a beautiful throw where he manipulated the safety and the guy was wide open for a touchdown. Oregon just kind of puts you to sleep, gets you chasing things, and then they go up top on you and kill you. And they executed perfectly against Illinois this week.
Oregon is at Michigan. They are a 2-touchdown favorite in the Big House. I mean, that's insane. It's crazy. If you go back to the start of the year and tell me that would be the point spread in this game at mybookie.ag, a 2-touchdown favorite in the Big House Saturday.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell anybody to bet on this. I'm not going to hold off.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hold off on that. But having said that, Oregon really hasn't played a very, very tough road game yet.
That's true.
And this is a very tricky spot against that defense of Michigan. So I know they've been losing, and then they struggled and had to pull it out against Michigan State this past week in their rivalry game in the Big House. But this is a very tricky spot. But Dylan Gabriel's a veteran. He knows how to handle that situation, how to handle that stuff. And Oregon also is getting healthier now.
Yeah.
They've been playing without a couple of their best players these last 2-3 weeks, and they're winning. And they're beating the top teams in the Big Ten in Illinois, believe it or not, and, of course, Ohio State. So it's incredible what Oregon's been able to do. They're one of those teams. There's only a handful of teams out there you could say have actually gotten better week to week, and they legit have. I mean, that Idaho game to start the season where they had to pull it out, you're wondering, man, is this even like a top 20 team? But they've proven very much worth their worth at number 1 right now, week to week, just getting better.
I keep doubting Indiana every week. I thought this Washington game would be tough for them with a backup quarterback. I think the whole country, based on some of the betting trends, thought the same thing I thought. It was not, I mean, it's not a blowout, but 31-17, Indiana was in control of this game pretty much the entire game.
Yeah, never trailed. They have yet to trail all season.
That's
only them and
crazy.
Army.
I know.
It's insane. And they won yet another game by 14 points or more. They haven't won a game by less than 14 points all season. I feel like we're just in a parallel universe, and maybe this is the one universe where Indiana is going to make noise and make the college football playoff national championship. What was really impressive in this game to me is you just hit on it. Curtis Rourke is one of the better quarterbacks in the country. I don't care what anybody says. 6'5". He's got the measurables of an NFL guy. He's perfect for that offense. Out for this game and maybe even this upcoming week with a hand injury. They bring their backup in who has starting experience previously under the previous staff, Taven Jackson, and they didn't really ask him to do a lot. And yet they were very productive around him. But also, Indiana's defense just not getting enough love all season. Opportunistic. They've been opportunistic all year, forcing turnovers, scoring points off turnovers, returning picks for touchdowns as well, setting up that offense for short fields. They've been doing that all year, and including this past week against Washington. Indiana is for freaking real, everybody. They are for real. They have been in my top 10 for the last couple of weeks now. They continue to be in the top 10. They are a legitimate threat, guys, to win the Big Ten championship this year. And they're doing it this past week with the backup quarterback who, what I say, is average at best. That tells you how good the pieces are around him.
So they get Michigan State, where they're a touchdown favorite on the road in East Lansing Saturday, touchdown favorite at mybookie.ag. Then it's the two that everyone will look at and circle for them. Michigan, that is in Bloomington, and then at Ohio State in Columbus. You win either one of those, or if you go 2 of 3 in that stretch, you may be playing for the Big Ten championship, to your point, and you are probably in the college football playoff, which would be just a remarkable outcome for year one under Coach Cignetti.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be insane.
Yeah.
I mean, he's already the first coach ever to go 8-0 or better in back-to-back seasons at different schools. It just, wherever he goes, he wins. As he said back in the spring, Google him. At this point, it's getting old. It's like it's almost like we have to keep reminding everybody, like, you guys not remember, like, he was saying this is going to happen and all this. Now, it wasn't going to happen this way. He didn't expect it to be this way, but there's something to be said. Again, I mentioned this earlier in the show, the attention span of players. And you got players that have cliches. I know it's a cliche. They have chips on their shoulder. They got guys that played at, St. Mary's and then James Madison, now at Indiana. Everybody's been doubting them their entire lives, and they keep winning, and they're building that confidence, and they're just hungrier than ever week to week. That's a dangerous combination when you're talking about young kids. That's the thing. These are still kids playing football, guys. These aren't pros. These aren't guys in their mid-20s or early 30s playing the NFL. There is emotion big time involved in this in the way they play. Indiana's got all the right ingredients right now mixed together.
So who's the best team in the Big 12? Most people will tell you it's BYU, yet they were a road dog at Central Florida. And that was one of those where when you saw that point spread, you're like, boy, the guys in Vegas know something I don't know. It doesn't appear they knew anything because BYU looked like BYU, and they smashed Central Florida 37-24. If you watched that game, it was not a 13-point game. It was a much bigger margin than that.
I wrote this today that, like, if you were channel surfing Saturday and you're flipping on that game, it seemed like BYU had the ball the entire game. That's because they practically did. They had the ball for 40 minutes on offense.
That's incredible.
And rush, they can run the hell out of the ball when they need to. They got a quarterback who is a veteran type who can get things done in tight spots. But the big development here for BYU of late is that the running game is getting going, and they've got 2 really good guys that they can really lean on there from time to time when they need to. And BYU, a lot like Indiana, in a lot of ways, like everybody's just like, yeah, they're undefeated. Yeah, they look good, but they're better than good. They're great. They also had a great win earlier this season when no one knew what BYU was against SMU. And SMU's now in the ACC title hunt in a bit of an unexpected turn from them in their first year, bumping up to the Power 5. So watch out for BYU. I mean, BYU is not a team you would want to face in the first round of the playoff. They are not. They could give someone a lot of trouble.
And they get a bye this week, and their November, Brandon, only has one team with a winning record on the schedule, and that's Arizona State. So this is a very favorable finish for the Cougars, who, hey, look, I don't know how this is going to play out. They may have to win their conference even with this record to get in. I don't know how all the voting will go. But still, they have a really good shot of finishing this regular season undefeated.
Yeah, and I can't believe I'm saying this, Brownie, so you mute my mic if you have to. I can't wait to actually see the first playoff rankings reveal.
Yeah, well.
Because we're going to get a look at how these playoff committee members weigh strength of schedule. I get the feeling, and this is just me talking, that those initial rankings we see are going to look a lot different from what we've seen in the AP polls here.
Interesting. Okay.
I just get this feeling they're going to come out there and go, we are separating ourselves completely from that. This is a different era. We are legitimately going to look at strength of record here, and you're going to see some things in there. You go, well, explain this, and they're going to explain it, and you're going to go, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I just get that feeling. Also from talking to people in the industry, all the way going into this, around the selection committee and how they're weighing things, I can't wait to see what they do that first week, and that's next week. Election night.
Oh boy! All right. So what a night to do that.
So a lot of people will be watching, right?
That's right. That will be the one that's maybe more entertaining to watch. All right, Miami, one of those teams that will be in those playoff rankings. They remain undefeated. They beat Florida State 36-14, kind of a yawner game. But Miami just keeps winning. Now, it had gotten to where every game was a close game for them. This was not the case with Florida State.
Yeah, Florida State can't score. I mean, they're the worst scoring team in the FBS or whatever. They got their average just about 2 touchdowns. Cam Ward doesn't even have to throw a touchdown pass. I think it's like a first time since like middle of last season at Washington State he hasn't thrown a touchdown pass. But he still did get something to add to his highlight reel with a touchdown catch in the Philly special play. They ran near the end zone there late in the game to end up winning this one by 3 touchdowns and covering the spread, thankfully. And, just did what they had to do in that one. I think for them it's big that they were just able to get a close game out of their way. Having said that, there were some herky-jerky moments offensively. They seemingly couldn't complete some of their drives. But I also think they went into that game going, we're just going to run the ball. We're not even going to go. They didn't even try to throw the ball down the field a lot like they usually do with Cam Ward. And it just seemed like they were trying to get out of that game healthy.
Duke is next for them coming up Saturday, 11 a.m. ABC game. All right, Brandon's about to show us his top 12 power ranking. We will do that after I remind you the show is presented by MyBookie.ag. Code next round when you sign on at MyBookie.ag. And you make your initial deposit, they will double that deposit with code next round. Double your initial deposit, money you can play with right away at mybookie.ag. That's when you use code next round. Monday Night Football tonight with the Steelers playing host to the Giants. The Steelers a 6-point home favorite in that one. Also, don't forget the World Series. All of that available at mybookie.ag. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere. Mybookie.ag, code next round. That is mybookie.ag, code next round. Also, Rhoback.com. A lot of team-specific gear for you at Rhoback.com, but also those great golf shirts like I'm wearing today. The hoodies, the quarter zips, they've got pants. Great idea for gift-giving season and great idea to save. Code TNR20. With that code, you save 20% off your initial order at Rhoback.com. Code TNR20. All right, here we go. The top 12 from Brandon Marcello, Oregon, and why would they not, is going to stay at the top with that dominant win over Illinois. Georgia had a bye week this week before the cocktail party. They remain number 2. You got Ohio State 3 and Miami 4. Let's start there with Ohio State. Shaky performance by the Buckeyes. You mentioned at times a little bit of a shaky performance by Miami. They remain 3 and 4, though.
Yeah, and I think that unless Miami just looked absolutely explosive and ended up winning like 63-0 against Florida State or something like that, I'm not sure I would have even then bumped Miami up. But both were shaky, so they both remain stagnant, so to speak, in that top 4.
Penn State is number 5 for you. The Texas Longhorns number 6. There's Coach Sig in Indiana at 7, and Texas A&M at 8. Let me see if I can find last week. Do you remember how much you jumped Texas A&M from last week? They were number 9. They went up one spot.
Yeah, and not a lot of folks had them above LSU.
Yep.
I had them above LSU. A&M just played much better schedule, had better wins on their schedule, and A&M just kind of fortifying their spot to me. they've had some really great wins. In fact, among all the one-loss teams, they've got one of the better resumes based off of who they've beaten when they were ranked at the time, including Mizzou, that was ranked at the time, and blowing them out. They beat a very good Arkansas team on a neutral site. They've got some spots there. I was actually kind of weighing in my own head for about 12 hours, do I flip-flop Texas and A&M at 6 and 8, or move them around a little bit? And I even took a Twitter poll out there, like which team's better to everybody else. But I leaned on Texas just because they're a little bit more explosive offensively. But the reason why I asked that is because doesn't this A&M team look a lot different offensively with Marcel Reed? Aren't they better with Marcel Reed out there? And so, let's get another game or two under our belts here where he's the starter in some of these bigger games coming up down the road. But they are very much in a position not only to obviously jump in the rankings, but to win the SEC. I don't know if anybody can challenge Georgia in the trenches, but maybe they can because of the dynamic quarterback they've got.
Clemson 9, Iowa State 10, Notre Dame 11, Tennessee 12. Notre Dame dominated Navy. I mean, Navy just unfortunately not ready for that moment with all the turnovers.
Yeah. Hadn't lost a fumble all year, then lose 5 fumbles in that game. 6 turnovers total, 51-14. Very impressive by Notre Dame. Notre Dame only 1 loss, and at this point, you're like, gosh, they did not lose that game in Northern Illinois, which is insane. Where are they in their rankings at this point? Are they number 2? They're probably number 2.
Probably so. He is Brandon Marcello, CBS Sports 27, Sports at B Marcello on social media. It is the middle 8. Thank you, Brandon. Have a great week.
See you guys.
All right, the next round, wherever you're watching or listening, is next. More college football with the next round right around the corner.